Thanks, Karina. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Lead for God's Sake and how it tied in and related to our course. Throughout our whole first half of our course, we ended up discussing resonant leadership and what it means to become a resonant leader, as we read exactly from this book, Becoming a Resonant Leader. Throughout Lead for God's Sake, there's many examples portraying and exemplifying exactly this resonant leadership concept. Leaders and characters throughout the book did not become so narrow-minded. They actually became very attuned to not only themselves, but also their surroundings and all the people around them. Also throughout the book, characters became a lot more mindful and attuned and aware of exactly their leadership tendencies, styles, and other people's perspectives. Throughout the book, there's many characters that at the beginning of the story might have exemplified and been, from a positivity ratio standpoint, been underneath that 2.9. As the book progresses, characters start becoming more and more positive. And towards the end, I would say with 95% certainty that there's at least 2 characters in the book that for sure would be above that 2.9 when it comes to a positivity ratio standpoint. Values-based leadership is discussed and portrayed throughout this book time and time again. There's a huge emphasis and focus on relationships. So as opposed to amoral leadership, which just tries to accomplish tasks and pretty much ignores the consequences of certain actions, this focus on this book truly does value relationships. The other thing that this book does, it really goes hand in hand with some of the assignments that we did throughout the class. It goes hand in hand with the personal vision paper that we did, where we had to discuss and truly find and identify what our values are, what our passion is, what we want our legacy to be, and what our noble purpose is. These are discussed time and time again throughout the book. As far as it relates to the coaching with compassion case study, this is clearly evident throughout the book, as Coach Rocker and the janitor are always discussing and meeting and talking about relationships and trying to bring people into the positive emotional attractor state. The other assignment that we worked on in our class that ties hand in hand with the book was our ethical case analysis. Because throughout the book, the janitor ended up critiquing and giving a lot of leadership advice to Coach Rocker and truly got at the heart of what it means to be a sustainable, ethical leader. And the book and Coach Rocker also recognized, just as Adam Smith, that the majority of the time people are going to be driven to pursue their own self-interest for selfish passions. Of the essential forces that we learned about in our book, really 5 of the 6 primary ones that are prevalent throughout the book are distancing from responsibility. Throughout the book, Coach Rocker ended up placing responsibility on everybody but himself. He ended up blaming all the losses on his team. He ended up blaming the selfish behavior on his team, and he ended up blaming the lack of leadership on his team. So he never fully took responsibility for what was going on with his team. The other one, tunnel vision. Coach Rocker was so focused on wins. That's really all he cared about. That is literally the only thing he thought about, even at the expense of his own personal life. Rationalization. Coach Rocker and Grant, the CEO, throughout the book have many conversations, and in these conversations, different things are always brought up about people and perceptions and society, and they would always try to rationalize their decisions. And they would be discussing and saying and blaming things on today's generation, today's society, and not having a good, true work ethic, and etc. The other thing is external pressure. In a coaching role, it kind of comes with the territory, but there was, the public, the teammates, other surrounding coaches. Everybody was expecting Coach Rocker and the team to win. Communication breakdowns. This was probably the biggest one throughout the whole course of the story. There was communication breakdowns everywhere. Coach Rocker with his family, Coach Rocker with his teammates, Coach Rocker and Grant, the CEO, and Coach Rocker and the conversations that the janitor had. Communication breakdowns all over the place. To kind of bring things to a close, I really wanted to kind of hit on and talk about some of the key lessons that Coach Rocker described to his team throughout the course of the season. And the first is that as a leader, you're always influencing through words and actions. And through influencing comes great responsibility. It's not just about your primary roles and responsibilities, but how you go about doing them and living your life as well. Throughout the whole course of the story and the season, Coach Rocker is trying to convince his team to be less selfish and not as concerned with their own individual goals and stats. But he himself was not living a selfless life. He was only concerned with winning, and that's all he cared about. He did not open up his heart, and he was not listening to the other people around him. So he was blaming the team's struggles on the seniors' lack of leadership and selfishness. But the irony and the funny thing is that he himself was guilty of this selfishness as well. And one of the common themes or things that go on throughout the course of the story is many interactions with Coach Rocker and a janitor where they end up drawing these stick figures on a chalkboard. So in this slide here is a drawing exemplifying a stick figure that we're drawing. And one of the things that's the next lesson that Coach discusses with the team is that leadership is done through either punishment and fear, which is represented by this hatchet, or wins and rewards, which is represented by this basketball with a W on it. In this case, it could be money or pay or something like that as well. But Coach is trying to convince he's convinced that's the only way to lead is through fear and punishment or through wins and rewards. And that's the only thing that he's thinking about in terms of leadership. And he cannot figure out how to motivate his team and how to get the guys to want to win. And finally, he ends up realizing that it all starts at the heart. Leadership starts at the heart, and that in order to start with the heart, he must figure out and ask why and what his purpose was. So he asked why, and he wanted to get to the bottom of why he was created and get to the bottom of what his purpose was. The next lesson that he ends up going on to discuss with the team is that God created us for relationships. And most importantly, our relationship with God and our acceptance and commitment to his gift of love, that should be at the foundation. And then everything else should flow from there. The next lesson that Coach Rocker gives to the team is embracing your position. Too many people in today's society, they become so worried about, if only or the next best thing. But really, we should be content on where we are and believe that we are where we're supposed to be. We are where we are needed to be. Okay? So we need to commit to living out our purpose today, being the best we can be right where we are. The next thing the next lesson that he gives is loving people. The janitor throughout the story exemplifies this to a T. The janitor is so loving in his nature and just embraces everyone that he comes in contact with. And he really lives by the belief that pursuing anything at the expense of key relationships in our lives takes us out of being our absolute best. The next lesson that Coach Rocker gives to the team is setting priorities. Way too many times in life, people try to set priorities with God number 1, family number 2, friends number 3, etc. But God should really be at the center of each of those priorities. Okay? So, we should be living our life for the sake of God, not for personal gain. The next lesson that Coach Rocker gives to the team emphasizes living passionately. Okay? Now, too many times people in our society, they don't realize that passion is a choice that comes from our commitment to our purpose. Okay? Passion is a great thing, but we can become very passionate about good, bad, or tempting things. And having passion guide us solely could get us in a lot of trouble. Okay? That's why we must commit to our purpose and have passion follow that. So purpose comes before passion. Okay? Now, once you choose in your heart what is right, such as relationships and priorities, everything else falls into place. Okay? That is what it means to lead from the heart for the right reasons, for God's sake. Let me leave you with this. We can accomplish everything we want in this world. We can win every game we compete in. We could build the greatest businesses, or we could get every degree imaginable. But at the end of the day, when the chips are called in, if we failed in the key relationships that God designed for us along the way, we never really became the best we could have been. Plain and simple. Thank you for watching today's presentation. If you have any questions, please post them on the blog or discussion forums. Thank you.